if the genders were reversed, we would probably feel very uncomfortable.
This would be a horror movie.
This would be literally just put the music behind it and it would just be a Lifetime thriller, perhaps. Welcome to Rom-Com Bomb, a Sex Ed with DB podcast series where in every episode we go under the covers with a beloved rom-com, strip away its hidden toxic messages, and rewrite the script on love and sex. Ever since getting married to my wonderful husband, I've been thinking about ways to keep things fun and novel between us. But I, of course, want it to feel organic. I want to be able to feel sexy and comfortable in my body while trying something new. Thanks to Lion's Den, a new adventure I've been exploring is the world of lingerie. I never really was a big lingerie girl myself, but once I started trying on lingerie that accentuated my curves, felt super soft to the touch, and made me look in the mirror and feel wildly confident in my skin, that changed pretty quickly. Plus, when I searched for what I might like on Lion's Den's website, I saw models that actually looked like me. They were curvy and thick and voluptuous, and it made all the difference to see models that have my body type. Want to join me in my new lingerie chapter? Right now, you can use code SEXEDWITHDB for 15% off your purchase in-store and online at lionsden.com. Follow them on social media at Lions Den Adult on Instagram and TikTok for exclusive offers, deals, and giveaways. What if I told you that I did a masturbation experiment with the magic wand and the results were incredible? Don't believe me? Let me share a few things with the class. When using the magic wand every day, I experienced less stress, anxiety, and physical tension. I reported more frequent positive moods when using the magic wand every day, including higher levels of confidence. My level of horniness increased over time when using the magic wand every day. And get this, the Magic Wand team was so excited by my study that now 1,000 people are doing it too. Stay tuned for those results soon. Want to see how else the Magic Wand impacted me positively? Go to sexedwithdb.com/magicwandexperiment to learn more. So you've been with your boo for a while and the spark feels like it's kind of gone. But what if I told you I could take away the mental load of figuring out how to, quote, spice things up by doing the work for you and sending you everything you need? That's where Aria comes in. They set you up with a dedicated concierge, aka a real person and not a robot, who is available anytime you need them, and sends tips and tricks weekly as well as a monthly box of goods based on your needs sent directly and discreetly to your door to help you get started. Visit arya.fyi and use code SEXEDWITHDB for 15% off now. Let's get that spark back. Hello. Welcome back to another episode of Rom-Com Bomb. I am your host, DB, sex educator, pleasure expert, and rom-com critic. And today we are covering one of the most beloved rom-coms of all time, I think. It's the gold standard for long-distance yearning, radio call and meet cutes, and wildly unrealistic grand gestures, so buckle up. And to help us unpack it all, we are joined by Talia Koren, host of the Dating Intentionally podcast, where she helps people date with confidence, cut through the noise, and actually enjoy the process of meeting the one. Talia, hi, welcome.
Hello, Danielle. I am so excited to get into this movie with you.
We have so much to unpack. I'm so excited. We have recently started a nice friendship, and it's a fun way for us to discuss all things dating and rom-coms kind of in one nice big bow, wouldn't you say?
Oh, for sure. I mean, I feel like we also both studied film. I just always remember that. So it's like fun to just chat this through with someone who also like studied film.
Yes, we have a lot of similarities here, Talia. We both studied film. We're East Coast lady Jews. We both live in California now. We both are podcasting and talking about things like dating and romance. We're on the same path here. I would say we both recently got married. That's another thing. Kind of wild. We're just like living parallel lives, and I'm so excited to witness you here on Sex Ed with DB to discuss that and more. So glad you're here. Thank you for being on. And I'm going to share the trivia teaser from last week so people can remember what we are going to be talking about today. We are diving into a rom-com where the two leads barely share any screen time, yet it's still one of the most romantic movies of all time? ? Today, we're reviewing Sleepless in Seattle. Talia, how stoked are you to review this movie?
So excited. As someone who lived in Seattle for 3 years, I was very happy to watch this movie.
You're a are they Seattle lights? What is that
Yeah,
called?
Seattleites.
Seattle
Yeah.
light. Wow, 3 years, that's kind of a long time.
Yeah, I mean, I'm from New York, right? So I moved to Seattle, another city, and it was fun to, like, point out, like, oh, recognize, like, different things. Weirdly, the Space Needle did not make an appearance in this movie, but the Twin Towers did, so that was cool. We love
I
seeing the Twin Towers.
I think I peeked the Space Needle for, like, a millisecond. I think
Yeah,
when she maybe landed or something, there was, like,
right.
something quick, and there was the public market, the fish
Yeah, yeah, the
market.
other there were other iconic, like, Seattle places, but I was just surprised to not see that, like, prominently featured.
Right, exactly. If anything, they should have met at the top of the Space Needle, I feel.
I know.
That would have made the most sense. I have a quote before we begin from writer-director Nora Ephron, iconic, and she said, "Our dream was to make a movie about how movies screw up your brain about love, and then if we did a good job, we would become one of the movies that would screw up people's brains about love forever."
What
So
the fuck, Nora
she
Ephron?
she knew, like, she knew what she was doing the whole time, it sounds.
Diabolical. That's diabolical.
Kind of hilarious, right? Of, like, making a movie about the movie that does that,
This makes a lot more sense now. Now that
right?
I know this, it does make a lot more sense, this movie, yeah.
She was like, "This is the intention of this film, and mission accomplished, I think. Let's find out." Okay, so here's a quick refresh, a recap, if you will, of the movie if you need a refresher, if you haven't seen it recently like us. So Tom Hanks plays Sam, a grieving widower who moves to Seattle with his son Jonah to start fresh. Jonah, being a precocious rom-com kid, calls into a national radio show and convinces the host that his dad needs a new wife. This is just making me think of the show. Farmer needs a wife, but Tom Hanks needs a wife. Enter Annie, Meg Ryan, a Baltimore journalist engaged to a perfectly nice but boring man, of course. And after hearing Sam on the radio, she randomly becomes obsessed with the idea that he is her soulmate, despite never having met him. Cue cross country stalking, letter writing, and a dramatic Empire State Building finale. Talia, we have so much to get into, and our first segment is actually called As a Kid. So I want to know, like, when did you first see this movie? Was it when you were in your youth? This actually came out in 1993. I was born in
Yeah,
92, so I definitely
same.
did not see this as a 1-year-old. Yeah. So
Yeah.
I'm curious, like, when did you first see this film?
Okay, so I definitely saw this movie, I want to say, in maybe college, and I feel like it was appropriately on a plane. Like, I saw this movie while
This is a
going
good
somewhere.
plane movie.
This is a
Yeah.
good plane movie. I will say this, I watched all of Nora Ephron movies, Meg Ryan, Tom Hanks, like, they starred a lot of different rom-coms. When Harry Met Sally, obviously not
Yeah.
Tom Hanks, is my favorite, but, like,
Mhm.
but this one did not stick with me. It did not really it was not one that I was like, "Oh, I need to watch this over and over obsessively." That
Right.
movie for me was Legally Blonde. So
Love that movie
yeah.
so much.
But, like, this one, I think I'm happy this movie exists, but it didn't, like, have a huge impact on me growing up.
When it comes to, like, what scene, though, defined this movie for you, is there something that pops out, even if the movie itself was kinda lackluster?
I think everyone knows the Empire State Building scene, even if they haven't watched this movie, it's one of those it's like the, When Harry Met Sally deli scene. It's like
Right.
an
You've heard of
iconic,
this.
yeah, rom-com scene that you've probably seen at some point.
What to you feels iconic about it? What do you think?
Because they orchestrate it, it's like, it's sunset, it's Valentine's Day, it's New York City, which is, like, a very romantic place, like you mentioned earlier, why didn't they do it in Seattle? It's because New York City is way more romantic. This is
Yes.
max romance, you know?
The
I don't yeah, they could have done it in Paris, I guess, but that didn't make any sense. So it's like, the Empire State Building is just very so I think that's why.
Right. And okay, and what happens at the Empire State Building is they, like, almost miss each other, right? Like,
Yes.
he and Jonah, who, by the way, Jonah just books his friend Jessica, who's 8 years old, books a ticket for him to go to New York alone to meet
This is
his
such
new
a
mommy. Like,
this is such a pre-9/11 movie. Like
exactly. This would never be able to happen after 9/11. New Yorkers, no way. And yeah, like, they almost miss each other. She's going up the elevator, he's going down, but Jonah forgets his backpack. And the whole movie, they talk about signs, right? Like, oh, this is a
Mhm.
sign. And I
It's
feel
a
like that was
sign.
It's a sign. That was Jonah is 8 years old. He forgets his things. It's a sign that they're going to meet. I want to know, before we even get into, that's problematic, and before our rating, before the rewatch, what do we like about this film? What do you think, as someone who does your podcast Dating Intentionally, right? Like, is there redeeming quality about this film? And if so, what?
Yes, I actually found a lot of Tom Hanks's opinions and feelings about dating and the dating process to be quite accurate.
Say
Until
more.
he's like starstruck by Meg Ryan when he sees her like walk off a plane and he has no idea who she is and whatever.
Right.
But like he said certain things throughout the movie about dating and getting to know people that were, I was like, oh yeah, I would say that today. Let me find one. This situation with Sam where basically he's heard on this radio show and then all these women are sending him letters to be like, I want to date you. It's similar to online dating because it's like you have all these options. And
Right.
in the movie, Sam goes, I don't want to like pick from a letter. I much rather see someone I like. Like he wants to meet someone in real life. And then he talks about how much he hates having dinner first dates. And I was like, I agree, Tom Hanks. Dinner first, he nailed it. He was like, you're stuck on a dinner with someone you might not like. So it's better to have drinks, which can turn dinner. Like things like that were like, yes, this is accurate.
Right. Still applies 30 years later.
It was just like there are certain accurate things about how women see dating and how men see dating. Like there was a whole conversation between Tom Hanks and his friend. And his friend was like, girls just want to see a cute butt. And it's like, that's so wrong. But like that's a realistic conversation in my mind for like what men think women care about.
Right.
And it's like really they just want to be not made fun of for watching a rom-com, which happens many times in this movie.
Yes.
Yeah.
It's true. I do like the conversations that go on. I do think the writing is very funny.
Yeah.
And I think what I really like about this movie is the relationship between Sam and Jonah. Like Jonah is this very funny kid, and we see Sam kind of like fuck up sometimes. And, he kind of gets heated with him because Jonah's stuck on Annie's letter and really is obsessed with her being the new mom. And Sam is like, Jonah, just shut up about it. And Jonah's like, shut up? Mom never told me to shut up. Like, I thought it was a very good kind of like realistic portrayal of a grieving family and a dad kind of trying his best and really, not dating because he is so in love with his late wife. And like, I just think that part of it felt like very sincere, and like my heart was pumping for that. Let me guess. You have a life and a job that you love, but the one thing missing is love itself. If you want to take your dating journey seriously this year, we highly recommend checking out Dating Intentionally anywhere you get your podcasts. Dating Intentionally is hosted by Talia Koren, who's on a mission to make dating fun and help you date with confidence. Talia pulls from her own experience going on 64 first dates in just 10 months, which ultimately led to her getting married. She's also joined by therapists, coaches, experts, and educators like me. I had a great conversation with Talia on her show all about incorporating sex toys in the bedroom and so much more. If you're looking for practical, no-nonsense advice that you can apply to your dating life today, you can listen to Dating Intentionally on Tuesdays and Fridays on Apple, Spotify, YouTube, or anywhere you get your podcasts. Do you ever want to get intimate with your partner, but just kind of feel something telling you that you're not super into it and not sure how to get the spark back? Let's talk about Aria. Aria is a service for couples that makes it easy to break out of routine, deepen emotional connection, and energize their relationship with curated experiences called scenes. You will also receive access to the Aria Concierge, who's like your relationship's wingman, a real person who feels out your vibe and serves up spicy monthly experiences for two. Pause this episode now and visit arya.fyi and use code SEXEDWITHDB for 15% off. I'm about to get personal here, so listen up. I'm going to tell you a fun fact about me that you definitely didn't know. The lube that I use most consistently is Uberlube. I really mean it. If you were here with me right now, I'd tell you to go over to my nightstand drawer and tell me what you see. That's right, you would see a bottle of Uberlube. If you've never heard of Uberlube, let me tell you about it. Uberlube is a silky smooth silicone-based lube recommended by leading doctors, and its body-friendly ingredient list makes it widely used by people with sensitivities to lubricants. Another amazing thing about Uberlube is that it doesn't leave a sticky residue like water-based lubes do. It lasts for a long time and doesn't stain clothing or bedding. I have 3 bottles of Uberlube on my bedside table right now, ready when I need it. If you're someone who wants to feel more pleasure in the bedroom, use code SEXEDWITHDB for 10% off at uberlube.com. Moving on, Talia, to the rating before the rewatch. I asked you to rate the film before so we can compare our pre- and post-watch ratings. Let's go over the rom-com vom rating system first.
Okay,
we have 1 to 5 voms. 1 vom is that this movie's dated, mostly harmless. 5 voms, no. Full body cringe. Burn all the DVDs. This aged like milk. Where in the pre-watch would you put your rating for Sleepless in Seattle?
Probably at a 2 because I didn't really remember it very well.
I agreed. I think for me, I was kind of like, I'm just going to give this a 1 because I just don't think when I first saw this years ago, that I thought anything was the matter with it. So let's keep that in mind. We're going to revisit this at the end. But now we are moving into our main segment of That's Problematic, where we talk through kind of, the issues that maybe we have. And as Nora Ephron aptly put it, her dream maybe came true. Make a movie about how movies screw up your brain about love, and then they would become one of the movies that would screw up people's brains about love forever. So let's get into it. I want to talk about kind of is it fate or full-blown stalking first? Because to me, this is kind of the most really intense issue of the film. And let me maybe, before we even get into it, kind of explain to our listeners who haven't seen this recently, like what the details are of this. So essentially, Sam is on this radio show, and people, Jonah essentially got the radio show their address in Seattle. So all of these women are writing letters, which, like you said, very similar to a modern dating app kind of situation.
They're sliding into the DMs, but
they're sliding into the DMs. But Sam also
your home address,
right? And Sam did not consent to this. The phone number and his address, he's like doxxed basically. And so 2,000 women, call in and try to get a date with this guy, just based, by the way, on him speaking about how much he loved his dead wife, nothing else. And we see Annie, Meg Ryan's character, continuing to listen in to this radio show. She's thinking about Tom Hanks. She's just convinced that there's a sign that she should meet him. And she lies to her fiance and flies to Seattle to meet him because she finds out his address.
She also hires a private investigator.
Correct. A detective to take pictures of him so that she could see who he is. So she's very obsessive, right? And so, this like destiny narrative throughout the movie seems to really let Annie off the hook completely for her decisions. Tell me your thoughts on this.
Yeah. So I have so many thoughts. First of all, like, there is a modern day version of this that is somewhat accepted that we do need to talk about, which is like when you meet someone or when you are aware of someone's existence, maybe you saw them on the apps, maybe you saw them at like your pickleball club, you will go online stalk them, and you will sometimes go down, scroll back to their Instagram from 2014 or something, or like find their tagged pictures and find their ex. And like some people do that, and that is on some level accepted. I've never done that. Like, I don't care enough to do that.
Right.
But like people do this. There is like a modern day accepted version of this. So I'm wondering, like in the 90s, like what were people's reaction to this when this came out? Like, were they like, oh yeah, she wanted to like find him, so she had to hire a private investigator and like find all these things on this really old school internet.
Right. That's a really great point. That like after people go on a date with somebody, they will look up their Instagram or before.
The modern day version of this is like creating a fake profile to like contact this person and like catfishing or like getting information that way by pretending to be someone else online. I don't know. I just want to say, like, there is this isn't something we left in the 90s. This is something that's become more normalized.
Right. That's so true. I do think, though, if a potential date were to show up at your door, you'd be like, what the fuck are you doing here?
Oh, yeah. No, that's
definitely crossed the line. But
that's
also,
crazy.
I have an interesting note here just about like gender role reversal, where like if Sam weren't the one, or like if the genders were reversed, we would probably feel very differently about this plot line and this lack of boundaries. Like we would feel
100%.
very uncomfortable. Where
This would
we
be a
feel
horror movie.
this would be literally just put the music behind it and it would just be a horror movie, Lifetime thriller, perhaps. Let's kind of transition now to kind of this idea with Walter, right? Where like
I want to talk about Walter.
let's talk about Walter. So Walter is this character, Meg Ryan's fiance, who we meet in the beginning of the film. He also is the dad in Casper the Friendly Ghost movie. I'm not sure. Yeah, love that film. Loved him as that dad in that film. Saw that a lot as a youth. And he's a very stable and kind partner to Annie. But basically, we get this message that like stability is so boring and she wants excitement, right? And so she ends up breaking up with him to go meet Tom Hanks' character.
Crazy.
It's okay.
I hate this so much. Okay, because Walter, I don't know if they did this on purpose, but he's like kind of portrayed as like a walking ick. He sneezes weird. He's allergic to everything.
Right.
And his name is so formal. How dare he have such a formal name?
She's like, you don't have any nicknames? No nickname?
And then meanwhile, I think the issue with this movie, that my biggest issue is that people loved Tom Hanks or Sam because of the devotion he had for his late wife. And the women were not interested in who he is. They're interested in receiving that feeling from a man. It could be any man. It could be a random man on a radio show. They just want to feel that level of like,
obsession.
How long is your program? I could talk about her forever. Like, that's what they want. They didn't want him. They just want the feeling. And Walter showed Meg Ryan's character love in so many ways that she just wasn't seeing because he wasn't like announcing it from the rooftops or a radio show, and that really pissed me off because there are so many Walters in this world that people overlook because they're not going over the top with the way they show love and affection, but they're just like stable and consistent and thoughtful and kind, and yet there's no magic, so we think it's wrong.
Right. The word magic is used a lot in this movie. It's kind of this like self-fulfilling prophecy to say like stability is not okay and I need that spark. And I think like something that Logan Ury says actually is like fuck the spark or something like that, right? Where basically we're being told through films like this that like unpredictability and instability is the real path to love and to marriage.
And the other thing that I just hated was like, again, back to the signs, like Tom Hanks was telling his kid, well, did you know your mom could peel an apple in one long ribbon? And earlier in the movie, we saw Meg Ryan doing this, like peeling an apple like in one go.
Right.
And it's like, that is not a sign of compatibility. I'm sorry. Like
you peel an apple.
Yeah, like liking the same baseball team, like there are all these little like signs that they liked the same things. That is not long-term love compatibility at all. Like, and that I hate so much about these movies. It's like, no. That doesn't mean anything. It doesn't mean that you're going to be good partners.
Right. Like what if, in her letter, she was able to actually talk about things that she likes to do and things that she finds funny and things, that she envisions for her life and like that she wants kids or doesn't want kids, things that legitimately equal the important parts of a relationship. Because even I, as the audience member, was kind of like, ugh, Walter, I don't want him. Like, we're like,
I would take him. I think I married a Walter and I am not ashamed about that. Like, also, I mean, luckily my husband has more of a backbone than him. Like he just like gets walked like all over by Meg Ryan.
Right.
But like, yeah, no. Walter is the winner in this movie. Tom Hanks, like, I'm sure he's fine, but we didn't learn anything other than he's just really loved his wife and he's a good dad.
Yeah. And can we talk for a second about Victoria, who's Tom Hanks's kind of new love interest? So
with the weird laugh, yes.
With the weird laugh, with according to Jonah, a hyena laugh. So, Jonah calls into this radio show to get his dad a wife, and Tom Hanks, talks to his sister and brother-in-law about this, and they're like, hey, I think it's a good idea. Maybe you should go on a couple dates. And, he's talking to his friends about Victoria, who's this decorator he worked with on a project. And we see him go on a few dates with her, and they seem to really like each other and for it to be a nice relationship. But of course, like Jonah, as the kid, it's understandable why he would feel jealous or wouldn't like her or, things like that. But she is also portrayed to be kind of an annoying character with her hyena
Yeah.
laugh.
Well, okay, I had to come up with this, like, I know it's, look, it's a movie, it can only be so long, but it's, like, on their first or second date, she's, like, meeting the kid, like, no, come on, you don't do
Right?
that, and,
I
like, they're,
know.
like, having dinner at his house, and it feels like they've been together for 8 years, and I'm like,
Right.
"No, no, no, that's not how this works."
Right.
Like
And then, like, they kiss and Jonah just screams at the top of his lungs because he's like, doesn't want it to happen.
Yeah, he's just sabotaging his like, what a little cock block, I don't know.
I think Jonah in this movie is so fucking funny.
He's the villain.
He is the villain, but I love him. He's so great. We got to move on to the cringe corner because the cringe corner is kind of like one particular thing, like, or, a character or a scene or a line where you're just like, ooh, this like really was the worst. Not only is that problematic, but like it made me feel just like so icky. And I'm wondering, is there anything about this movie that gave you that level of cringe?
I mean, I guess mostly just Meg Ryan's constant gaslighting of herself and trying to be like, I'd give anything to marry Walter." And then, like, even her friend Rosie O'Donnell who rolls her eyes at that
Rosie
because she
O'Donnell,
knows it's
yes.
not true. And, like, also just they're literally in Tiffany's looking at rings, and she's
Right.
like, "That's the exact ring I would've picked." I don't need surprising. It's like, "Bitch." Like, what are you you're like, "Hold on." He gives you the exact ring you would've picked out, and you're unhappy with this because you weren't surprised?
Right.
Like, what in what world? So,
It's
I don't
quite
know if cringe
psychotic.
is the right word for me, but it's just like, that made me just really hate her.
Mega yikes, maybe? Yeah, I
Yeah.
completely agree. She really does try to trick herself kind of throughout this entire film into wanting something that she doesn't want. And it's kind of weird because we're kind of meant to believe that until she listens to this radio show, she is in it with Walter and
Right.
really loves him and is into it. And somehow listening to Sam on the radio talk about his wife in a way that maybe she feels like Walter doesn't talk about her. Like it's this very bizarre thing because Walter is a very secure person. And Meg Ryan's character is kind of classic Meg Ryan character, which is like floofy, kind of aloof, like, she's like
Yeah.
fruffing all the time. And I just always picture her with like shopping bags in her hands, kind of
Yeah.
like turning 360 because that's just kind of how she is, like very feathered hair. And you're right, she is gaslighting herself. And I feel like the part of that is cringy to me is like, this is further proof that women actually don't know what they want and that we are unsure about like what our goals are, what kind of relationship we want to be in, and that we are so easily swayed by persuaded by one call-in radio show to change the
Yeah.
entire trajectory of our lives.
I guess it's, like, also kind of maybe this is Nora Ephron was trying to do this, but it's like this radio call was the thing that fucked Meg Ryan over. It's like her rom-com wake-up moment, but in,
Mhm.
like, her reality instead of just watching a movie, that made her question her stable relationship to go for something that is extremely unknown. And it's like,
Mhm.
why? Why?
Right.
Like yeah.
We're moving into the rewrite here, Talia.
Okay,
So
I'm ready.
basically, we're gonna do a rewrite and then we'll do our final ratings of the film. But this is the part where we get to retell some of the issues that we saw in this film and what would we rewrite? Is it something specific about Annie's character? Is it a certain scene? Is it like the way in which that, they meet? Like what is like the first thing that you would change about this
I'd gut
film?
the whole thing. No, okay, hear me out,
We're
hear me out,
throwing
hear
it
me
in the
out,
garbage.
hear me out. I would take Walter out completely. Meg Ryan, it's hard to have her be a redeeming character that I care about when she's, like, literally left her fiancé and goes to meet the,
On
quote, "love of her
Valentine's Day.
life" within 10 minutes. Yeah, just it's, like, crazy. So I would write him out. I would start the movie at the end where this one is, where it's, like, the radio call. It's, like, kind of more faster. And
Mm,
then we see the relationship play out, and it's kind of like a knocked up version of this where they're
mm,
forced together because, like, well, we I moved to Seattle for this, and we have to try to make this work, and they actually fall in love with each other in real time versus the fantasy of each other.
Right.
Like, that's the movie I want to watch.
You want to see them dating. You want to see Walter kicked to the curb. We don't need him. We don't need, his stability as like a foil to this like kind of crazy fantasy.
Yeah, I want to see, because we just saw that the movie ends where they just meet. They don't even say a word to each other. We don't know if this is going to work out. I want to see the hard stuff where they actually have to make it work and decide to be together or not.
We want to see the fights. No,
It's not
I
fair. It's like, wait, we're happily ever after. We've been on the Empire State Building knowing nothing about each other. Also, in what world would Tom Hanks stay with this woman who just left her fiance and stalked him? What?
I know. He's like, wait a minute, I just saw you in Seattle. That's weird. And she's like, yeah, that is weird. Anyway, like she
Oh, I was
doesn't tell him.
engaged 10 minutes ago, by the way.
Right. Okay, here's
Having
what
fun.
I
Yeah,
like
what would
your
you do?
rewrites. Here's what I would change. I think I would change the fact that she goes to Seattle to stalk him, and more that she gets an assignment that is for work where she has to go to Seattle. Because that way, that's a plot device where we're not thinking, hey, she is mentally unwell and she is making a bad decision. And we have to, not judge her for that as the audience because she's so cute and flouncy. But she is forced to go to Seattle for work. And so she has been thinking about him, but then that's when they do actually meet. And then we see them, go on a few dates together. We see them
Yeah,
spend time. Maybe then she's deciding whether or not she has to go back to Baltimore or not. And then maybe we kind of see them like make a joint decision as to like where they're going to live if they want to continue dating.
right. That would be much better. And also on that, like, she almost wrote a story about this, I think, like, of the phone call and the whole radio show. It's like, why didn't she just go interview him as a reporter and then connect with him that way? Like,
Right. She could have. She
she
could have
literally
done
called
that.
his house as a reporter. She could have been like, "Hey, I'm a reporter. I want to talk to you about this thing because we're writing about it." Like, why you did
Anything
that?
else. I
Yeah.
know, I know. Anything else. I mean, even if they did include that, that would make more sense than her just lying to Walter and going to Seattle to be like, "I'm gonna talk to him. I'm gonna talk to him." It's like, just include anything else because that makes her look psychotic. It truly
Yeah.
does.
I will say one thing, sorry, one last thing I noted on this
Please.
movie is it takes place during the time between Christmas and Valentine's Day, which is, very tumultuous
Right.
time for
It's true.
relationships, and I think that was pretty accurate. Um,
Yes.
and yeah, I mean, this is a fun movie to hate on. I will say.
This one is like definitely not as bad as some other ones. Like obviously the stalking is undeniably bad, but I think that other than that, like you said, not as much misogyny, not really any fat phobia. There's kind of, not
Right.
the scary parts, which is good.
Yeah, there's no
So,
homophobia really in this.
right,
There's
there's no
no
homophobia. It's,
yeah, yeah.
it's all kind of all in good fun. And stalking. So, we are at the end, Talia, where we are having to do a post-watch rating on our VOM scale, 1 to 5 VOMs after our discussion today. What are you giving it?
A 4.
Oh, that's quite high. Could you explain it?
Because it's just even though Nora Ephron had this mission of, like, kind of poking fun at this, she is reinforcing the thing that she is calling out,
Yes.
and I don't like that.
Harsh grader. I love it. I would not want to have you as my teacher. I would probably give this like a 2.5. I think like ultimately, 5 for me is like shallow hell. And that's kind of my like top where I'm kind of like, oof,
The worst.
this
Yeah.
should not have gotten made. And I wish I could forget about it because I've seen that movie so many times as a kid and it's bad. Whereas this one, I feel like, 1.5 points for sure for the stalking, and then kind of 1 point for me for them just like literally not having any sort of substantive conversation before the happily ever after. So like really not great, I would say.
For me, it's that and the leaving the stable thing for the unknown thing, which I just in today's dating world, 2025, we are not doing that.
Right. We are not
No.
doing that. It is interesting though. I really like how you brought up how some of the similarities still exist between the 90s dating and today of like figuring out dating apps and how people are very curious about other people for better or worse. And yeah, I I do think that this movie is somehow still has cultural power. Like when I Googled it, it's like the 9th most searched for
Yeah.
rom-com. It's 32 years old, which is kind of interesting. I also, before I let you go, have another trivia teaser deed just about how far down the list Meg Ryan was for the role of Annie. So after Julia Roberts and Kim Basinger turned it down, Michelle Pfeiffer, Jennifer Jason Leigh, and Jodie Foster also declined. Only after all of them said no did the role finally go to Meg Ryan, making her the almost accidental queen of 90s rom-coms, which is kind of crazy.
It's crazy. I could see Julia Roberts. I can't see Jodie Foster. That's so interesting.
Let me share next week's trivia teaser right now. The real life story behind this rom-com started with a law student who didn't fit in at school. She turned her experiences into a manuscript, one that an agent only noticed because it was printed on pink paper. So, maybe think in your heads what that might be and look forward to next week. Talia, this has been so wonderful. I'm so glad to have you on Rom-Com Vom and so glad that you're my new friend. So thank you so much for being on. And before I let you go, beautiful listener, if you have a rom-com that you remember from growing up, submit it to us by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts or leaving a comment on Spotify. We want to hear what you want us to cover. And Talia, where can people find you?
Yeah, you're welcome to slide into my DMs and stalk me all you want on Instagram at dating.intentionally. Come hang out with me there.
Yay! Thank you so much, Talia.
All right, thank you.
Our creator, host, and executive producer is me, Danielle Bezalel, aka DB. Our producer is Sadie Leegee. Our communications lead is Catherine Cohen. Our music theme is by Hook Sounds. Thanks so much to our featured guests, partners, and listeners. If you have a rom-com you remember from growing up and want us to cover it on Rom-Com Bomb, submit it to us by leaving a review on Apple Podcasts and leaving a comment on Spotify. Want to partner with us? Email us at sexedwithdb@gmail.com. For more sex ed content, follow us on Instagram at sexedwithdbpodcast. See you next time.